AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at Rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.
You are listening to the One Day at a Time podcast. On this podcast, my guests share their stories of alcoholism, addiction, and how they recovered so that you can too. My hope is that you find the inspiration and resources you need to let go of what's holding you back so that you can transform into the person you were always meant to be. Ready? Here we go. Hello, my loves. Thank you for downloading the podcast. My name is Arlena, and I'll be your host. Today, my guest is Ed Kressy, author of My Addiction and Recovery. In addition to being an author, he is a prison reform advocate and a prolific speaker, sharing his story at places like MIT, Google, Cisco, LinkedIn, and numerous community groups. So in this episode, Ed shares how he got addicted to drugs and alcohol at an early age, the depths of his disease, and how he recovered. He's a very sweet man with an incredible story of redemption. To hear more episodes like this one, along with recommendations for books, meditations, and other super fabulous recovery podcasts, just visit odatchat.com and subscribe to the weekly newsletter. So there you have it. Please enjoy this conversation with Ed. Well, Ed, thanks so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Arlena, it's my pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
So we're going to talk a little bit about prison reform, maybe some solutions, like if you've ever had legal issues, maybe some things that you can do for employment and how to deal with family and all that stuff. How does that sound?
It sounds great.
I know you're an expert. I do want to talk about your book too. It's called My Addiction and Recovery. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. What's it about?
It's maybe not the most creative title, but it tells the story, and it's a means of not only telling my story, but doing so in a way that advocates for others who are walking similar pathways as I. The same way so many remarkable women and men helped me by sharing their stories. That's what I'm trying to do, just pass it along.
That's a beautiful thing. Thank you so much for doing that. It's desperately needed. I feel like people, when they share their story, it helps others to not feel as alone, or maybe help resolve some of that shame and stigma around addiction. Don't you find that it's kind of fascinating that in this day and age, there's still so much stigma around addiction?
Absolutely. And it's so important what you say, Arlena. To me, the goal in recovery, at least for me, the way I was taught, is not to stay sober. The goal is not to quit drinking. It's not to quit drugs. It's not to leave our addictive behavior behind us. That is one critical, key, important step along our pathway. Our goal is to lead our best lives. That's our goal in recovery, whether it's in the form of spirituality or service or self-improvement or some combination of the three or some other means of living our best life. That is our goal in recovery, is to live our best life. The way we accomplish that, one way we accomplish that, is by hearing the stories of others. It's so important what you say. Every story we hear gives us a little piece to our own puzzle. I think of it as like assembling a jigsaw puzzle. Living our best life is like assembling a jigsaw puzzle. We hear another person's story, we get a little piece. Sometimes it's an edge piece. Sometimes it's a corner piece. You know, you've assembled a jigsaw puzzle and you get that corner piece.
Love
you're
those
like, yeah.
corner pieces.
Right, yeah.
I always cheat with the edge.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And sometimes the only piece we get is a little bit of blue sky or green grass, but that's fine. We generally don't hear one single story and get our entire picture, our entire puzzle. We keep listening to stories. We keep telling our own story. So many amazing women and men tell their stories. They've given me so many pieces to my puzzle. And here I am on your wonderful show, talking to you and your amazing audience and giving back in some small way. It's a great thing.
Your humility is inspiring. You do great work as well. So thank you so much for sharing that. I love that idea about the puzzle pieces. And I'm glad you wrote the book because we'll be able to talk a little bit about the highlights today, but it's it's great to hear the whole story too. There's so much, and we're not going to be able to hit all the highlights and get to the depths of what your story in, 30 minutes or less. So the book will be really important too. I know there's lots of solutions in there, which is really what we're all looking for, some solutions. Before we jump into that, I love doing this little lightning round and typically don't feel rushed because I tend to ask questions and drag it out. But if you're game, we'll play the little lightning round.
I've been looking forward to it.
Yes,
Absolutely.
Well, that's right. You're super prepared. That's awesome. Okay, so you probably already know what I'm going to ask. What's your favorite recovery book?
My favorite recovery book, when I was in early recovery, there was a book Anna David wrote with Tom Sizemore. I forget the exact title, but it was Tom Sizemore, who's a well-known actor, and he overcame devastating addiction, incarceration. He telling his story along with a book called Dream Seller by Brandon Novak, who is doing a lot of work in recovery today. You've heard of it? Okay, yeah. Great. And they, as we were saying just a few minutes ago, when they shared their stories, they led me to other authors like Mary Carr, Elizabeth Wurtzel, who unfortunately passed away not too long ago. More books by Anna David, Augustin Burroughs, certainly Ryan Hampton, Darren Prince, a friend of mine, Akshay Nanavati, who overcame addiction. All of them shared their stories in books. And again, like we were saying before, they inspired me to do some small part by sharing my story. So those are some of the books.
That's amazing. Funny you should mention Anna David and Darren Prince. Both were guests on my show. Did you know that already?
I did not know. Darren Prince is a friend of mine, and I wasn't aware. He's doing so much incredible work.
He's amazing.
Yeah. And of course, Anna David's a superstar.
She really
remarkable.
Is. Yeah. She got that book that she wrote for Tom Sizemore was a New York Times bestseller. So she's amazing.
By some miracle, I got out of there, I think it's called.
Is that right?
Yeah, I think it's called By Some Miracle, I Got Out of There. And it's a remarkable story.
I'm going to leave links in the show notes to all of these books. I am obsessed with books. I have almost 130 titles from Audible.
That's great.
Yeah. Anything worth doing is worth overdoing.
I like that. I'm going to write that down.
Yeah, right. Do you have a favorite quote or mantra that you live by?
The one that springs to mind is, to the mind that is still, the universe surrenders.
Ooh, that's a good one. That's all about meditation, right?
Exactly. That's Lao Tzu.
Oh.
Another one I like is, it's better to conquer oneself than to win 1,000 battles.
Amen to that.
That's a great one that carried me through a lot of challenging situations in recovery. It's attributed to the Buddha, but I think it's kind of been changed somewhere along the line. Nevertheless, to me, it's a great mantra.
Okay, better to conquer oneself than
to win 1,000 battles. So, if I can overcome my resentments, it's better to conquer my own resentments. It's better to conquer my lack of gratitude. It's better for me to conquer my own selfishness and self-centeredness. All these things which were the root problems of my addiction. It's better to conquer those than to go out there and win some battle against the outside world, but to win 1,000 battles against the inside world.
Amen.
That leads, I believe, to that still mind that Lao Tzu was talking about.
Yeah, the still mind. That's very difficult to achieve, I have found. I'm in the middle of a meditation challenge, a 30-day meditation challenge. And you know why I did it? Is because I was having such a hard time submitting to the silence. The silence is, I'm an achievement junkie, I'm a doer, and so silencing the mind is challenging for me. So I set up this 30-day meditation challenge because I'll do for others what I won't do for myself. So by holding this space for others, I also benefit and finally am able to submit to the...
That is wonderful. I think with meditation, the way I was taught was that it's something whereby if we do it every day, we are going to get better. We can't not improve if we meditate every day. It's like going to the gym and doing bicep curls.
Yeah.
If we go to the gym every day and do bicep curls, assuming we get proper nutrition and enough rest, our arms are going to get bigger or more defined. They can't not. Our arms have to respond to those bicep curls that we do daily. With meditation, it's very similar. If we practice every day, if we dedicate ourselves to a daily practice, we have to improve. It's just the way the universe works. That's how I was taught.
Law of cause and effect.
Law of cause and effect. Perfect.
Love that. Very good. Do you have a regular self-care recovery routine, self-care practice?
Absolutely. Meditation has been the one constant since I put the meth pipe and the rest of it behind me back in 2007. There's been other things, nutrition. I've focused on nutrition. That's come and go in various forms.
Yeah.
Meditation has been the one thing that I've stayed with. Today I meditate. These days I meditate an hour every day, half hour in the morning and a half hour in the evening.
And you split it up. I like that.
I split it up in the morning. The half hour round in the morning so I do a half hour in the morning, and then I do 2 15 minutes in the evening, because my mind is more restless in the evening. So I split it up. And I'll tell you, Arlena, that half hour in the morning seems a lot shorter than those 15 minutes in the evening. It's so true what you say about the mind and the stillness. As far as self-care, the meditation is one daily practice. I do other daily practices. I've been into cold exposure.
Okay.
I live in Massachusetts. Every day since November, I've been going into a river nearby. I haven't missed a day since November. Yeah, a river or a stream or the ocean or something. Yeah, it's an incredible way to the science behind cold exposure. Yeah, a lot of benefits of producing human growth hormone and certainly the immune and circulatory systems. I found that no matter what our daily practices might be, in terms of self-care, it's so important to maintain some form of daily practice.
Right.
Those are our foundation. When the inevitable storms of self-doubt, worry, insecurity, when those inevitable storms assail us, it's those daily practices that create our foundation. We have that firm foundation. I'll go ahead.
No, I'm sorry to interrupt. I was just going to say, I love how you frame it with the context of mitigating the self-doubt. And, the reason we do a self-care practice is to mitigate like the normal, natural stresses of a daily life. That's why we do it. Maintain that emotional sobriety, emotion management type stuff. That's why we do it. That's why Absolutely. I do it.
Yeah, it grounds us. It reminds us who we are. It brings us back to the structure of our life. It brings us back to the patterns of health and self-love and transformation that we undergo through the course of recovery. These daily practices, it's that foundation.
Health and self-love, so important. Yeah, you can't hate yourself better. That's what I heard.
Right.
What's one thing you wish you knew when you first got sober?
I thought about this question. It was harder to think of what I didn't, harder to think of all the things that I didn't. I think if there's one thing that I wish I had known, it was how to better immerse myself in a role of advocacy right from the get-go, advocating for others. That is the way that my spiritual connection manifests itself in the material world. I think to me, one of the greatest stories of advocacy is Jesus. The story of Jesus is of a person who advocated for the sick, the poor, who stood up against oppression and tyranny. Jesus made great sacrifices on behalf of others. He paid a terrible price, and according to the story, he got a reward. His reward is, his reward. The story is similar to that of the Buddha. Right? The Buddha left a life of opulence and comfort in order to go out along a pathway that showed others how to break free from suffering and sorrow. And while I'm certainly not a theological expert, these stories are very real to me insofar as when I think of my let's say, more earthbound heroes, people like Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King, their lives to me personally are a little bit less of a spiritual nature And by that, I mean, I can hold people like Jesus and the Buddha here with me right now.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus and Buddha are here. They're in my life. They're real. They exist day to day. Whereas Nelson Mandela and Martin Luther King, astounding human beings that they were, I read their books and I learn about their lives. They guide me that way. Whereas Jesus and the Buddha, they're of a spiritual nature, and they're here with me today. The point is, it underscores the importance of spirituality to me in recovery. Like the Dalai Lama said, the best religion is the one that makes the practitioner the best person, right? The most compassionate, the most giving, the most empathetic. To me, that rings so true in recovery.
Yeah.
The best form of recovery is the one that makes us as the person in recovery the best person.
Right.
And so I can look at Jesus, Buddha, Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King, a host of others, Mary Carr, Anna David, people who are with us today. Look at them and the examples they put forth, advocate myself in my own way on behalf of others, just like so many incredible women and men have done before me, and who are right here today in their spiritual form. So I guess what I wish I had known was how to better connect my spiritual pathway to being a more effective advocate here in the material world.
Right. No, I love that. Service is, for me, like a cornerstone of recovery. As I am of service to others, I tend to be more forgiving of others than I am of myself. But, there's this idea that we can't escape the same measuring stick that we judge others by. So when I'm in service and when I'm advocating for others, it changes my mind about my judgments, and I tend to be more compassionate. And as I'm more compassionate with others, I'm better able to give it to myself. So I love the idea of service and spirituality. And thank you for bringing up all those amazing teachers. While switching gears, what do you do for fun?
For fun, for advocacy through self-expression. Through creative self-expression, I'm learning how to better and better advocate for others. How that looks is I get up every day before dawn. Most days I'm up 4 o'clock in the morning, 4:30 in the morning, doing my meditation, strong cup of green tea, and then I move on to an even stronger cup of coffee. I'm an author.
Yeah.
I'll write my story. I'll write articles. I'll write in ways that tell my story, and also advocate, like we were saying before, advocate for others to tell their stories as well. It's a very creative process. It's a fun process. It's something I really enjoy. My dream, since I've been a little kid, was to be an author. It was always my dream. It got derailed by my drug addiction. To be able to express myself creatively, also advocating for others while living out my dream is a fun, beautiful thing. I think, and the other thing too, I recently moved from the majestic, fantastic city of San Francisco to a beautiful, remarkable small town here in Massachusetts. So communing with nature. There are bunny rabbits and bald eagles and chipmunks and fish and all kinds of, never mind the verdant green of the foliage we have out here. And of course, the people where I live are incredible. They're amazing people too. For fun, the communing with nature is, I'm really finding getting back to my roots, having grown up here as a kid. That's a lot of fun. What's
interesting is almost everybody that I talk to and I ask about fun, people talk about being in nature.
Really?
Almost everyone I talk to. First, it's like, fun. What is this fun thing you speak of? But it's always nature. It's amazing. Yeah, I love that. And it was so interesting to hear you talk about, your writing as being fun, but it was derailed. Have you heard of Ryan Holiday? He wrote a book called The Obstacle is the Way.
Yes, I've read that, and I've read at least one other of his books.
He has Ego is the Enemy. Great. Yeah. He's a really good author, but it reminded me when you talked about how your writing was derailed. It almost the obstacle is the way. I always thought that, my life was over when I realize that I had addiction issues and that I wasn't going to be able to have fun anymore. So I thought, but it turned out that, addiction was like the best, worst thing that ever happened to me. It gave my life purpose and meaning, right? And it's almost, that's kind of what came up for me when you're talking about how your writing was derailed. But because look at you now, the whole experience that you had has defined, I don't know if it's defined your writing. I don't know if that's a fair statement, but certainly this book has been all about that experience, which is going to help so many people.
It has. Have you heard the story of the butterfly and the hiker? The person is hiking through the woods. Are you familiar with this story? It's a great story.
What is it?
A person's hiking through the woods and comes upon a butterfly escaping from its cocoon. And the butterfly is struggling and fighting to free itself from its cocoon. The hiker takes out a knife and starts to cut the cocoon, thinking that will help the butterfly. The hiker has the best intentions, yet what the hiker is doing is actually harming that creature, because it's the struggle to free itself from the cocoon that gives the butterfly's beautiful wings their strength. The analogy is that we, as people in recovery, are very much like that butterfly. We struggled, we suffered, we put ourselves and others through terrible trials and challenges. Yet today in recovery, we each day get more and more like that butterfly, spreading her beautiful wings, flying, living our lives. And when we were caterpillars, so to speak, life seemed pretty good. We were munching on grass and we were crawling around and the sun was shining. Life seemed pretty good as a caterpillar. And we were forced to go through that struggle, that incredible challenge of escaping the cocoon. And wow, look at what life is now. I would never want to go back to being a caterpillar now that I'm a butterfly. I like that analogy for recovery.
I like it too. I don't know if you can see behind me, those of you watching I have a butterfly behind me. Yeah, I love the idea of transformation. I love the idea of going into the cocoon and searching within and the transformation that happens within. And then, of course, the struggle to break free is very symbolic. Thank you for sharing that story.
Of course.
Well, listen, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, addiction, as we know, addiction has a purpose.
Yeah.
Usually, or at least I've found for me and probably for many others, addiction has a purpose. Our goal in recovery is to uncover that purpose. And that's, that then we get that freedom and that living that best life.
Uncover the purpose.
It pushes us. In my case, addiction pushed me on pathways I otherwise would never have undertaken.
Right.
I never would have been a person concerned with spirituality. I never would have pursued a path of advocacy on behalf of others were I not have been addicted to drugs. Right. That purpose, addiction's purpose for me was to push myself along that spiritual pathway. For every person in recovery, she or he probably has a different purpose behind the addiction. If we can uncover that purpose, if we can transform it to our advantage and hopefully the benefit of others, then we make meaning and we give meaning to something that otherwise seems meaningless and chaotic, which is the addiction that we went through.
Yeah, that pain and suffering. I love that idea that we can use, our past to help others. How about we spend a few minutes talking a little bit about, how you got here? I'm always curious about people's family of origin because I feel like our childhood will set the stage for everything. How we see ourselves, what we, how our value, what we think we're capable of, what we're worth. So I would love to hear a little bit about your recovery journey, like where it started and how we got here.
Of course. Well, I usually start by saying I went from being arrested by the FBI to being recognized with a community service award by the FBI director.
Wow.
So it speaks to the blessings that we can bring to ourselves in recovery and that we can pass along to others. To get back to your question, I grew up in idyllic small town Massachusetts, surrounded by wonderful people. My parents were both college professors. They're retired now. Among the other blessings they gave to me, the most important one was they instilled in me a love of reading from a very early age. I mean, Arlena, to picture my home without books is like to picture my childhood home without a roof. or floorboards. Books were such an important part of my life. I loved the feeling of escape into fantasy worlds. I would come home from the library, almost a caricature of a little kid with a stack of books almost too high to see over. I just love those books. What kind of happened was, along with my love of reading, I was also very sensitive as a kid. I would cry easily in school when the teachers yelled or the school bus driver would pull over to the side of the road when the kids got too rowdy. I was uncoordinated, couldn't compete in sports or in gym class. Arlena, where I went to junior high and high school, reading, crying, and being uncoordinated, not exactly a campaign platform upon which one might run for class president, right? Although some of the first feelings of accomplishment and confidence I had came from reading. I remember in my English class, the teacher called me to the front of the room to read aloud a story I had written. I read my story, and afterwards, the same bully who punched me in the stomach out on the playground came up to me in the English class and clapped me on the shoulder in congratulations and told me he liked the story. Reading was one of the first ways I felt a sense of accomplishment. And guess what the second way was that I felt a sense of accomplishment? Right, drinking. 14 years old, drunk for the first time at my aunt's wedding, off leaving the reception with, all my family, surrounded by loving family, but wanting no part of the family. Instead, with that purloined bottle of champagne, my cousin in a little apartment off to the side watching a porno movie. And that, was to me the top of the world, that feeling that I belonged. I belonged. It wasn't, I don't remember, I can remember so many details. I remember so many details of that year of that day when I was 14 years old. It wasn't, the feeling of being intoxicated, that was great. But even better was that feeling of acceptance. From a very early age, I made those strong bonds of association between intoxication and feelings of acceptance. I went on to become a very heavy drinker at 16 years of age, having escaped from, or I saw it as an escape at where I was at in my life, from a small town in Massachusetts, where I grew up. The town was called Ashburnham. It's a wonderful town. I left that town, moved to the big city of San Francisco, 16 years old, getting drunk on Royal Gate vodka almost every night of the week. That feeling of freedom, meeting, making friends. People from other countries were my friends. People just, to me, this was very exotic, very new, and just a remarkable sense of freedom. And right there, all the time, along with that freedom, was that bottle of Royal Gate vodka, or almost all the time. At the end of every night, there was that Royal Gate vodka. From there, in college, it was on to cocaine. Became a very heavy cocaine user, marijuana, ecstasy, dabbling in LSD, methamphetamine. I got heavy into meth later on in life. In college, I dabbled in meth. Anything that could take me out of myself. I remember in college telling a lot of lies about myself, making up stories about how I had gotten in these fist fights and defended the honor of women and played on the football team. None of those things ever happened. Even as an adult in college, I was still that little kid, afraid to stand up for himself on the playground against the schoolyard bullies. The lying, the stories I would tell myself, the meaningless encounters with women, and certainly the drinking and the cocaine and the rest, all of it was a way to make myself into something I thought I wished I could be. As we know in recovery, as I have been taught, drugs are not our problem. Drugs are not our problem. Drugs are our attempt at a solution. My problem was me, that I hated myself, and I was a prisoner of my own failure. I was a prisoner of a failure to pursue my dream of being an author. I've always believed that, and I write about this in my book, that for addicted people is often that conflict of dreams versus goals. For most people, they're the same. A woman has a dream of owning a business, so her goal is to own a business. A man's dream is to run a marathon, so his goal is to become a marathon runner. For us in recovery, or for us struggling with addiction, often our dreams are things like to feel normal. Our dreams are things like to feel comfortable in our own skin. Our dreams are things like to just be okay with myself. Those are our dreams, yet for whatever reasons we pursue goals, college education, home ownership, careers. There's nothing wrong with any of those things. Nothing wrong, but no career, for few careers, few goals such as home ownership are going to get us to our dream of feeling normal. For me, that's how it was. I wanted to feel normal. My dream was to be an author. Instead, I pursued goals. A company called Genentech. It was a great company. They were the number one best firm in America to work for, according to Fortune magazine. They hired me. They gave me a career, treated me very well. I achieved goals like becoming an amateur kickboxer. I would compete in the kickboxing ring. I owned a home. I got a lot of help from my parents, but I owned a home. I rode a BMW motorcycle. All these things are goals. There was nothing wrong with any of them. Yet they were never going to get me to my dream of becoming an author. They were never going to get me to that place of liking myself, loving myself, feeling normal. All through the course of these goals that I was achieving, all through college, all through Genentech, all through the home ownership, all through the rest, I was using massive amounts of alcohol, cocaine, and finally, for the last devastating 11 years of my addiction, methamphetamine. I just went from snorting meth to smoking it. That's when things really took a dive. This is where I developed my methamphetamine psychosis, believing that the FBI had architected a vast global conspiracy against me because when I had gone to Bangkok, Thailand, I inadvertently befriended one of the 9/11 hijackers who was actually an undercover operative posing as a hijacker, and therefore I knew too much. And it was, Arlena, I could go on and on and on with the convoluted nature of these conspiracy theories. They were as real to me as this conversation you and I are having. That my life, I was that kid carrying home stacks of books from the library, yet in a very twisted, demented way, I had made a fantasy world my reality through my methamphetamine psychosis. And all of a sudden, here I am. Now I'm a person, no longer the kid picked on in the schoolyard. Here I am, a person of vast, vast importance in my mind. In my mind, the entire FBI and the Department of Defense and the CIA and my family and Genentech and everyone is involved in this conspiracy against me because I'm so important, because I have I hold the secret to the 9/11, the truth behind 9/11. And again, this is all seen through the lens of my methamphetamine psychosis. I used to carry a loaded .357 pistol almost everywhere I went. I would show up at the FBI offices high on meth, asking for help or demanding an end to the FBI surveillance that I thought was being conducted against me. I burned through my life savings, sold my home, spent all the proceeds on strip clubs, electronics that I would tear apart looking for hidden surveillance devices. I'd smash holes in the drywall looking for microphones and cameras. To my deep and utter shame, I had this beautiful dog. He's on the cover of my book. I would basically abuse my dog. I would neglect my dog. I would take out my poor choices on my dog. I would leave him home alone while I would go out partying at the strip clubs and scoring my methamphetamine. My life from the idyllic childhood and all the opportunities society gave me got me to a place where I lost the dog. The dog went on to a much better place, by the way. The dog was adopted by a family with a small child, and he ended up doing really well. Ed didn't end up doing so well in the short term. In 2007, after 4 or so years of this methamphetamine psychosis, hearing the disembodied voices that would constantly threaten to kidnap and torture me to death, and they were sent by the FBI, these disembodied voices, I ended up in this little flophouse hotel with a sink in the corner where I would ash my cigarettes, wash my clothes, and urinate. I hadn't showered or brushed my teeth in months. I was nowhere near employable. The sum total of my material possessions was about 6 things. I had this grimy, filthy black baseball jacket, these filthy trousers, Converse shoes held together with duct tape. Then I owned a tuxedo. That's ridiculous as it sounds, because I had worked at the strip clubs, and the strip clubs treated me well as an employee, but they fired me the strip clubs treated me well, and I made them pay for it, if you know what I mean. I was showing up high, stealing from them. But I wore the tuxedo around town. One night in October 2007, I found myself in a fancy downtown hotel. I'd left my Flophouse hotel and gone to a downtown fancy hotel, waiting for people to leave an unfinished drink at the bar so I could pick up that drink and knock it back myself. In that hotel, there was a ballroom. In the ballroom, a wedding reception was taking place. I figured, you know what, I'm going to crash the wedding reception. I'm going to get a drink. I'm going to get something to eat. Maybe they'll mistake me for a groomsman because of my tuxedo. I was, it's at some part, it's somewhere in my mind. I think I probably went back to when I was 14 years old at that wedding reception, drunk for the first time. On that October night in 2007, at some level, it occurred to me that in the previous years leading up to that night, I'd been invited to 5 weddings, 10 of my closest friends. One couple had asked me to serve as their best man. Arlena, out of those 5 weddings that I was invited to of my closest friends, do you know how many I showed up to? 0. Not one. And in that October night in 2007, with my filthy tuxedo in that hotel ballroom where a stranger's wedding reception was taking place, at some level, I realized just how much I had hurt not only myself, but those closest to me. And I went back to my little hotel room. There was a little bit of meth left in my pipe. There was a little bit of a joint and I smoked it all. Haven't done meth since. Got into recovery. I bounced in and out of rehab leading up to that night. I got into recovery the next day, maybe 2 days later. Haven't come back since.
That's amazing. So that moment that you were at the wedding, that was sort of like your spiritual awakening, your moment of clarity, so to speak?
That was definitely a moment of clarity. I think it took a process of going in and out of rehab. I've been to rehab a couple times already. It got to a point that they say that recovery, I was told that recovery, it's not for people who want it. It's not even for people who need it. It's for people who are willing to do the work.
Absolutely.
Okay, yeah. And I found that I've since found through the course of my reading and other teaching me that maybe, recovery is different for different people. But for me, that was absolutely true. Yeah. When I was ready to do the very hard work, and I never, on that night in October 2007, I began going to 12-step meetings. Okay. I would go to 1, 2, 3, 4, sometimes 5 12-step meetings a day.
Yeah.
I got a job working at a Christmas tree lot. I'd worked in my past, I'd worked at Stanford University. I worked for Genentech. I mentioned that company, the number 1 best firm in America. And here I am working at a Christmas tree lot, tying Christmas trees to the tops of cars for tips. Mm-hmm. I began an intense spiritual pursuit. I would spend time from the Hare Krishnas to the Hasidic Jews to the Hindu spiritual texts and everywhere in between. So many wonderful teachers, so many incredible people passed along their spiritual teachings to me. I became, and all along, as through the process of recovery, one thing that really was impressed upon me was the value of facing my fears. I had a lot of fear. I discovered that just because you're done with drugs doesn't mean drugs are done with you.
Right.
That was something that it was true in my life because the methamphetamine psychosis, it didn't stop the day I quit meth. Right. I continued to experience a lot of paranoia, a a lot of fear about the FBI SWAT team coming to kick down my door, hearing disembodied voices. And these things continued for years and years after I left the meth behind me. Fortunately, incredible people of a spiritual nature, people, and many of them I write about in my book, people showed me the value. They took me into their families, even though I'd been a total stranger to them and had just gotten off a terrible methamphetamine run shortly before I met these individuals. They brought me into their families. They showed me the value of community service. They instilled in me confidence in myself. They believed in me until I could believe in myself. They taught me, they gave me the confidence to start overcoming my fears. A couple of things I did was I joined a Toastmasters organization, which, if you don't know, is the public speaking. Oh, cool. Okay, great. Well, that's one reason you're so well spoken, because you've done Toastmasters. Sure. And when I went to Toastmasters, I found that I could take my forms of self-expression that I put forth in 12-step meetings, and I could temper them and tailor them so as to make them of value to people outside of recovery.
Right.
Being the Toastmasters community, I started becoming comfortable speaking about my experiences, speaking about the wonderful women and men who inspired me to life transformation. I could speak about the lessons that were imparted upon me outside of the recovery community. The recovery community was amazing, and they still are. Yeah. Now I learned, so now I'm starting to become an advocate. As I'm going through Toastmasters, I started speaking about my incarceration. I was incarcerated relatively briefly, only a couple of months when I was actively using meth. Through the Toastmasters community, I learned to start sharing my story. I joined a remarkable organization, a nonprofit called Defy Ventures. These are people who deliver entrepreneur and employment training to currently and formerly incarcerated men and women. Defy was founded by an astonishing woman named Catherine Hoke. She left a career in venture capital, a lucrative career, to work with incarcerated persons. Catherine Hoke and her Defy Ventures family allowed me to go through their program. They instilled in me, their entrepreneur training program, they instilled in me the value of being of service, as did others. Mm-hmm. At the time I found Defy, I'd been working back in a biotech firm. The firm treated me very, very well. I was earning the equivalent of a six-figure salary. I would sit in my little cubicle all day thinking about suicide. Oh. I would think about suicide. I would think, I didn't want to die necessarily, but I really didn't want to live. And it was only because of spiritual beliefs about the afterlife that were instilled in me that I didn't take my life. My early meditation teachers taught me that were I to commit suicide, I would have to go backwards through many lifetimes. Oh, and it speaks, yeah. And it's, because of the compassion and the love these teachers had for me, I was able to accept their beliefs. And that, I'm sure, is the only reason I didn't take my life in those terrible days of depression following my putting away the meth pipe for good. Right.
You mentioned, I'm sorry to interrupt your flow, but you mentioned doing 12-step work and, combined with the spiritual teachers. How long, the beginning is very hard for a lot of people. I know the people that are listening that are like in that beginning stage. How long did it take you to start feeling normal again and start feeling like you belonged again?
Still happening today.
It's an ongoing process.
It's an ongoing process.
And that's okay, right?
Oh, it's absolutely okay. Yeah. And it's a beautiful process. Someday it's like, I heard a good analogy recently. It's like standing on the beach when a wave hits us. Uh-huh. A wave comes in and we can either stand up against the wave and almost certainly get knocked over, or we can lie down and let the wave take us. That's a great analogy. But the analogy is that there are days those waves come in, the waves of self-doubt, the waves of remorse, the waves of resentments. And it gets better and better every day. And the more I learn through my meditation and through my spiritual practice to kind of lie down and go along with those waves, the better and better it gets. So as to how long it might take to feel normal, I think normal is a constantly shifting concept. I don't know that, I searched so long for feelings of normalcy when I was using drugs. And now I think that, maybe there is no normal. Maybe it's the only constant is change. And the spiritual pursuit is one of a long climb up a mountain when we may not reach the mountaintop in this lifetime. The mountaintop is there. I think the analogy I'd like to use is that of climbing a mountain. Mm-hmm. There are many paths, perhaps, going up a mountain, and some paths are straight and wide and not very steep. Other paths are twisting and turning, and sometimes those paths go down, and we can't even see the top of the mountain because there's branches and leaves above us. No matter what path we're on, we always know in general where the mountaintop is. Mm-hmm. We always know that if we stay on our path, whether we're on a solitary path or whether we're on a path with others, we keep on that, we will get to our mountaintop. That's why spirituality is so important, because it's that spiritual, very little of a material nature is going to be strong enough for those of us in recovery to keep us on that path.
Right.
We need to think of the spiritual. We've had things. Many of us in recovery, we've had so many things of a material nature. We're good at achieving things. We're good at making money. We're good at jobs. We're good at any number of things. But we've learned through the course. Many of us have thrown away much more of a material nature than we ever earned while we were in recovery. The flip side, and it's a beautiful flip side, is that when we are able to grasp on the things of a spiritual nature and pursue them, they by so far eclipse things of material nature.
That is the truth. I know that for sure. Maybe normal was a poor choice of words. I recognize that, even today, in the midst of struggles, that there's always moments of peace. Right. And I think at the end of the day, that's what I was always looking for. I wanted that sense of belonging that you talked about. Like I always, I was just like you, like didn't feel like I belonged or anything. But finding moments of peace, finding those moments of connection, like finding a new normal, right? The recovery communities have provided me with a new normal. So that's, a new normal is important, but that recognizing moments of peace through spiritual principles, I think, is really important too.
Recognizing moments of peace and finding what's truly important. Very little. My sponsor has a great saying: "You never see a U-Haul following a hearse." Right? Nothing we achieved. Yeah, you can't take anything with you.
Yeah.
For me, the other thing I did was along with the Toastmasters, right around the same time, I discovered something called Krav Maga, which you've heard of it. Okay.
I have. I've seen people do it. It's very like, it looks like dancing kind of, right?
It could be. It depends upon maybe how you practice.
Who's doing it?
Well, it's similar to martial arts.
Right. Yeah.
It looks like martial arts. It's really a form of self-defense. It's an intense physical practice. I got very immersed in Krav Maga to overcome my self-doubts and my feelings of physical threats going back to when I was a bullied kid.
Yeah.
I pursued Krav Maga. I became an instructor.
Wow.
And it just so happened that one of my students was an FBI agent. Mm-hmm. Right. I made it known, and along the way, I'd been doing many forms of community service. I'd become a volunteer first responder for the fire department. I'd done volunteer work for the Red Cross to be of service. I made it known to my Krav Maga FBI student that I wished to serve the FBI in the same way I'd served the fire department. He helped me organize an unarmed self-defense training for the FBI SWAT team. Arlena, the very people I'd been so afraid of, the FBI, because they were the ones in my delusions that were going to kick down my door and drag me off. Now, all of a sudden, I'm standing in front of the FBI SWAT team as their instructor.
That's so funny.
It's remarkable the blessings that recovery.
What you think
brings.
About, you bring about.
What you think about, you bring about. Yes, if you see it, you
see it in your mind, you'll hold it in your hand.
CBA: conceive, believe, achieve. Right? You can conceive what we can conceive of, and what we can believe in, we can achieve.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful to the FBI. I'm so grateful to so many women and men in law enforcement. because as an expression of appreciation for my training self-defense, the FBI nominated me to what's called their Citizens Academy.
Oh, nice.
It's a very selective program. They take people, mostly it's people who are, in my case, I was out in California in Silicon Valley at the time, so the Citizens Academy was mainly attended, or a lot of the participants were tech workers who worked in security. There were also remarkable representatives of the Muslim community. There were two incredible women who advocate for youth victims of sex trafficking, other community servants. The FBI, so much to their credit, has this Citizens Academy in order to demystify the FBI and create bridges of trust with various communities.
I love that.
In my particular case, it's a wonderful program. I'm still very involved with it as an alumni. In my case, thanks to the FBI, thanks to law enforcement, various police departments who I've been allowed to volunteer with, certainly thanks to our sisters and brothers who are or were incarcerated and are transforming their lives and who allowed me into their lives. Certainly thanks to our sisters and brothers overcoming histories of incarceration who took time to share their stories with me. I'm able to build bridges of trust between entities like the FBI and communities affected by incarceration and addiction.
That's
I have so
important.
much farther to go. It is.
It's so important. My father, after he retired, taught ESL at Elmwood. You might be familiar with Elmwood since you're from the Bay Area. Yeah, the Bay Area where I'm from. And he would say that most of the guys that were in there were there on drug-related charges. So we, as a country, really need to change the way we deal with addicts. And I know that that's a big passion of yours. Where can people find out more about you and the work you're doing in case they need help or have questions for you or want to work with you? How do people get a hold of you?
Go to my website. Thank you for asking. I'm here to help. You can reach out to me at www.author.ed.Kressy. I can spell that.
Author Ed. How do you spell your last name?
Kressy. And
I cheated. I knew that.
You can get my book, and I just sorry to cut you off. I'm so proud to announce this publicly for the first time here on the ODAT chat. By the time people are listening to this, it might be more publicly known, but we've been in the process of donating my book to incarcerated people. We donated 500 copies so far, and Arlena, just this week, I had received approval from the state of California to donate my book to every prison library in California. There's 123 total. I just shipped them out the other day. So soon, the 94,000 incarcerated people in California, or many of them, hopefully most, if not all of them, will have one more resource to access recovery in my book. But we're not stopping there. Our goal is to donate my book to every state prison library in all the states, plus the federal system, with the help of so many incredible women and men who've been with me on my journey and helped and assisted me to transform my life. I think we'll get to that goal.
That is a beautiful goal to have. Thank you so much for all your work. Thank you for joining me today on the podcast. I'm going to leave links to all of these things in the show notes. So everything that you mentioned, from the books to the DeFi organization, we'll leave notes in the links in the show notes so that people who need these resources will be able to access them. But gosh, you're doing such great work. I know you've dedicated your life to serving others, and it's so needed. So thank you so much for all the work that you're doing.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Great. Well, we'll talk again real soon, and thanks so much for joining me. Thank you,
Arlena.
One last thing before you go, if you enjoyed the podcast today, please don't forget to subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher and leave a review. And if you'd like to make a donation to the podcast and help me keep the lights on, you can do so by visiting odatchat.com. There's a donation button or membership button on the right-hand side. Have a great day. Thank you so much for joining us.
AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at Rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.